They say the most profound conversation you'll ever have won't be with another person, but with your own soul. Beneath the endless noise of life, under the weight of responsibilities, desires, and fears, there exists a still, sacred voice that never stopped speaking to you. It's the voice that guided you as a child before the world taught you doubt, the one that whispered go when logic said wait, the one that comforted you in silence when no one else understood. That is your soul, timeless, infinite, and patiently waiting for you to remember who you truly are. This isn't a book about religion, and it isn't about philosophy. It's about returning to the essence within you that already knows the way. Your soul doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't command, it invites. And the reason so many feel lost, confused, or unfulfilled is not because life has gone wrong, but because they've forgotten how to listen. In conversations with your soul, you'll be guided through a sacred inner dialogue, a journey from noise to stillness, from confusion to clarity, from the false self to the infinite essence that has always been your truth. You'll learn how to recognize the language of your higher self, how pain and desire both carry messages of transformation, and how silence itself can become your greatest teacher. Each chapter is not just information, it's an initiation, an invitation to slow down, breathe, and listen to what your spirit has been trying to tell you all along. You'll discover that the answers you seek are not hidden in books, gurus, or external signs. They live quietly in your own awareness, waiting for your attention. This is more than a conversation, it's a remembrance. Because deep down, you've always known. There's a part of you untouched by fear, unbroken by time, and unconcerned with worldly chaos. A part of you that is pure awareness, pure love, and pure being. And when you begin to converse with that part, when you truly listen, life no longer feels like something happening to you, but something happening through you. So, take a deep breath. Let the noise fade. Your soul has been waiting for this moment to finally be heard. Chapter 1. The Whisper Beneath the Noise. There is a voice within you that has never stopped speaking. Long before you were shaped by the noise of the world, before doubt, fear, and external validation became your compass, that voice was there. It is ancient, timeless, and pure. It spoke when you were a child, guiding you through wonder and instinct. It whispered when you stood at the crossroads of your life, nudging you toward choices that made no logical sense, yet somehow felt right. That voice, your soul, has never left you. It's just been waiting beneath the noise. But as the world grows louder, that whisper becomes faint. We are surrounded by endless chatter, opinions that drown our intuition, distractions that numb our awareness, and expectations that smother authenticity. We've been taught to chase proof instead of peace, to seek applause instead of alignment. We live in constant motion, but motion without meaning only deepens the silence inside. The soul's language is not volume, it's vibration. It speaks in emotions, in subtle nudges, in serendipities too precise to be coincidence, and unless you slow down, you'll miss it completely. The whisper of your soul often comes disguised, a sudden knowing that bypasses logic, a deep calm in moments that should terrify you, a quiet ache that refuses to fade until you listen. It never shouts, it doesn't beg, it simply is. And when you ignore it long enough, it begins to speak through other means, through the restlessness you can't explain, the pain that keeps repeating, the emptiness that success can't fill. Pain, at its deepest level, is not punishment, it's communication. It's your soul saying, "You have wandered too far from your truth. Come home." To hear this whisper, you must return to stillness, because silence is the soul's first language. The world conditions you to move, but your spirit asks you to pause. You must learn to listen, not with your ears, but with your awareness. Meditation, breathwork, journaling, or even sitting alone beneath the sky, These are not escapes from life. They are entrances into it. When you stop running, the inner frequency begins to rise, and you start to feel the hum of something ancient inside you, something that knows the way without words. The voice of the soul is never anxious, never rushed, never afraid. It doesn't argue with logic or demand certainty. It simply reminds. It reminds you that peace was never something to find. It was always something to remember. It reminds you that love, clarity, and direction are not earned through effort, but revealed through stillness. The whisper beneath the noise is not a divine force outside of you. It's your truest self, the awareness beneath the thinker, the silence beneath the sound, the being beneath the doing. So if your world feels chaotic, if your heart feels lost, stop searching outside for what only lives within. Sit still, breathe, and listen. The whisper is already there, gentle, patient, eternal. And when it finally rises above the noise, you will not question it, because it won't sound like truth. It will feel like truth. The kind of truth that doesn't convince your mind, but awakens your soul. Chapter 2. The Forgotten Language of the Soul. The soul doesn't speak in words, it speaks in energy, in sensations, symbols, and emotions that often defy logic, yet feel unmistakably real. Before you ever learned to speak your native tongue, you understood this language instinctively. As a child, you followed what felt alive: curiosity, wonder, play, love. You didn't need validation or proof. You trusted what your inner world revealed. But as you grew, that language was replaced by the rigid syntax of reason, expectation, and control. You learned to think louder than you could feel. And that's when you began to forget. The forgotten language of the soul is not something you must be taught. It's something you must remember. It's the ability to sense meaning beyond words, to feel truth rather than analyze it, to follow resonance instead of approval. The soul communicates through intuition, that inner nudge that whispers, "This way." It speaks through synchronicities, those uncanny coincidences that seem too precise to be chance. It even speaks through emotions, not as punishment, but as navigation. Joy says, "You're aligned." Anxiety says, "Something's off." Peace says, "You've arrived." We've been conditioned to mistrust this inner language because it doesn't conform to the rules of the rational mind. We were told to follow instructions instead of instinct, to measure worth by external success rather than inner fulfillment. But the language of the soul cannot be measured. It must be felt. It doesn't shout in the noise of logic. It whispers in the rhythm of your being. Every time you say, "Something just feels right," you are speaking its dialect. Every time your body tightens in resistance or relaxes in ease, your soul is expressing itself through sensation. To remember this language, you must return to simplicity. Spend time in silence. Observe your emotional reactions without judgment. Let intuition be your guide, not your afterthought. When you walk into a room, notice how your energy responds. Does it expand or contract? When someone speaks, feel beyond their words. What is their energy saying? This kind of awareness reawakens the sensory intelligence of your soul. You begin to understand that life is not random. It's responsive. Everything is communicating with you at an energetic level. The soul's language is also the language of creation. When you align your feelings, thoughts, and intentions, you send clear signals to the universe. When you doubt yourself, you send static. This is why alignment feels effortless, and resistance feels exhausting. One is fluent, the other is fragmented. The more you live from your inner resonance, the more fluent you become in your soul's expression. And perhaps the most beautiful part of this language is that it's universal. It doesn't belong to any religion, culture, or doctrine. It's the same voice that speaks through sunsets and symphonies, through intuition and dreams, through every act of love and creativity. It's the silent dialogue between the infinite and the individual, between the ocean and the wave that knows it is still water. Your soul has never stopped speaking. You simply stopped recognizing its tone. But once you remember, once you start feeling instead of forcing, listening instead of labeling, you realize it's been guiding you all along. And then life stops being something you control. It becomes something you understand. Chapter 3. The Split Between Self and Spirit. There comes a moment in every life, sometimes gradual, sometimes abrupt, when the child who once felt whole begins to split. It's not a visible fracture, but an internal one, the quiet separation between who you are and who you think you must be. This split is the birth of the self, the version of you constructed to survive in a world that often demands conformity over authenticity. It learns early that approval equals safety, that love must be earned, and that truth must sometimes be hidden to avoid rejection. In this process of adaptation, the voice of the spirit, the soul's gentle current of truth, gets buried beneath layers of fear, expectation, and performance. The spirit is infinite, while the self is conditioned. The spirit says, "You are already enough," while the self whispers, "You must prove yourself first." The spirit trusts the unknown, but the self clings to control. This is the silent battle that shapes human suffering, a tug-of-war between expansion and protection, between the freedom of being and the fear of not being enough. And yet, both parts of you are trying to help. The self is not your enemy, it is your armor. It was born to protect you from pain, judgment, and abandonment. But what was once armor becomes a cage when you forget how to take it off. Over time, you identify with the mask, the personality, the story, the image. You start believing that this facade is you. You become trapped in roles, the achiever, the healer, the caretaker, the strong one. Beneath them all, the soul quietly waits for recognition, whispering, "I am still here." The split between self and spirit is what gives rise to spiritual hunger, that quiet ache that no amount of success, money, or love can fill. You might achieve everything the self desires and still feel incomplete. That emptiness is not failure. It's an invitation. It's the spirit's call, urging you to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Reunion begins with awareness. You begin to notice the moments when you betray your own truth, when you say yes, while your whole being screams no. You notice when you shrink your light to fit someone else's comfort. Every time you do, you feed the false self and silence the soul. But when you choose authenticity, even in small ways, you begin the process of healing the split. The journey is not about destroying the ego, but integrating it. The goal is not to erase the self, but to realign it with the spirit. Imagine a river covered with ice. The ice is the self, rigid and protective, but beneath it flows the same water, the spirit, fluid and eternal. As you warm into awareness, the ice begins to melt and the flow returns naturally. Integration happens when you realize you are not the story of your wounds. You are the awareness that witnesses them. You are not your thoughts. You are the stillness beneath them. You are not the image you project. You are the energy that animates it. When the self and the spirit move in harmony, life stops feeling like a struggle. You no longer chase purpose. You embody it. You no longer seek love. You become it. The illusion of separation dissolves, and in its place arises a deep knowing. There was never a split at all. There was only forgetting. The reunion of self and spirit is not an achievement. It's a remembering. It's the moment you come home to the truth that has always been waiting for you. You were never lost. You were simply asleep in the dream of who you thought you had to be. Chapter 4. Hearing Through Stillness. There is a voice within you that does not shout. It does not argue, compete, or demand your attention. It waits, patient and constant, beneath the noise of your thoughts, beneath the rush of your days. This is the voice of your soul. And to hear it, you must learn the lost art of stillness. Stillness is not merely the absence of sound, it is the presence of awareness. It is what happens when the mind quiets enough for the truth to rise. Most people live in perpetual noise, the hum of social media, the chatter of fears, the endless commentary of the thinking mind. In that noise, the soul's whispers are drowned. You cannot hear eternity when you are tuned only to survival. But when you begin to practice stillness, something sacred happens. You start to feel before you think. You begin to sense the subtle movement of life speaking through you, not in words, but in energy, intuition, resonance. The soul does not communicate through logic. It communicates through vibration. It speaks in a language older than speech, a language of knowing. Many fear silence because it confronts them with themselves. When the distractions fade, what remains is the raw humanness we've avoided, the grief, the longing, the confusion. Yet, it is only by sitting in silence that these unspoken parts of us can be heard and healed. The soul will not force its wisdom through chaos. It waits for the moment you stop running. To hear through stillness, you must first learn to be still in yourself. That means observing your thoughts without identifying with them. It means noticing when fear starts scripting stories in your mind and choosing not to believe them. It means creating sacred pauses in your day, moments where you simply breathe, listen, and remember, I am here. I am now. I am enough. At first, the silence may feel empty, even uncomfortable. But slowly, as you sit in it, you will discover that silence is not void. It is full. It is alive with intelligence. In that quiet space, answers begin to emerge effortlessly, like ripples rising from deep waters. Insights appear, synchronicities unfold, and what once seemed confusing begins to make perfect sense. This is because the soul's wisdom is not something you seek. It's something you receive. You don't chase it, you allow it. You don't manufacture clarity, you relax into it. Stillness is the bridge between your human mind and your divine essence. It's where inspiration is born, healing occurs, and alignment becomes natural. In stillness, you realize that guidance has never left you. You were simply too loud to hear it. When you start to live from this space, you begin to trust life in a new way. Decisions no longer come from panic, but from peace. You act not because you're forced to, but because you're moved to. You start hearing through the silence, through sensations, intuition, even the quiet pull in your heart. The more you practice stillness, the more fluent you become in the language of your soul. You begin to realize that the universe itself speaks in whispers, through gentle nudges, recurring patterns, and moments of deep resonance that make no logical sense but feel profoundly right. And in that sacred quiet, something beautiful happens. You stop seeking signs and start being one. You no longer chase connection because you've remembered the one that was never broken. In the end, hearing through stillness is not about finding answers. It's about finding yourself. It's about dissolving the distance between who you think you are and the infinite consciousness quietly breathing through you. So sit, breathe, listen. The silence you fear is the doorway to everything you've been seeking. For within that stillness, your soul is not whispering, it is singing. Chapter 5. The Questions That Awaken Truth. Every soul journey begins not with answers, but with questions, the kind that echo deep within you, long after the noise of the world fades. These are not the shallow, surface questions of the mind. What should I do? How do I fix this? Why me? But the kind that stir the soul awake. Who am I really? What is this life asking of me? What truth am I not seeing? The soul does not fear questions, it thrives in them. Because every real question is an opening, a doorway to a deeper awareness of who you are. The mind seeks to conclude, the soul seeks to expand. When you stop demanding immediate answers and instead sit inside your questions, you create space for revelation. It is in that spaciousness that truth begins to rise from within. Most of us have been trained to seek answers outside ourselves, through experts, systems, and validation. But when it comes to the soul, the only true teacher is your own awareness. The answers you are looking for have been written into your being since before you were born. But they can only be read when you slow down, turn inward, and listen with presence. Start by asking the right questions, not the ones that keep you trapped in confusion, but the ones that pull you into consciousness. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" Instead of asking, "When will things change?" ask, "Who am I becoming through this?" These subtle shifts in inquiry transform pain into power and confusion into clarity. The soul responds not to fear-based questions, but to love-based ones. When you ask with openness rather than desperation, you vibrate at the frequency of truth. The universe always answers that vibration, not with thunder or dramatic signs, but with quiet confirmations, a sudden realization, a passage that speaks to you, a stranger's words that feel divinely timed. You see, asking the right questions is like planting sacred seeds. They don't bloom immediately, but over time, they sprout in the soil of your awareness. You may wake one morning with a sense of peace where pain used to live, or a deep knowing that wasn't there before. That is the soul answering, not with logic, but with transformation. It's important to remember, your soul does not speak in riddles, it speaks in resonance. When something feels deeply true, when your entire being exhales in recognition, that is your inner truth answering your question. Truth doesn't always comfort at first. Sometimes it breaks illusions, confronts attachments, and dismantles what no longer serves you. But always, it frees you. To awaken truth through questioning creates sacred space for reflection. Write your questions down. Sit in silence with them. Don't force an answer. Feel for it. Let your heart respond before your mind interferes. Often, the question itself begins to dissolve because what you were seeking wasn't information. It was alignment. As you practice this, you begin to realize something extraordinary. Your life itself is a conversation. Every experience, every challenge, every joy is your soul answering in real time. Each event mirrors your inner state, inviting you to remember, to grow, to awaken. The questions that awaken truth are never about control. They are about surrender, about opening your awareness wide enough to see that everything happening is guiding you back to yourself. So ask, not to find what's missing, but to rediscover what's eternal. Ask, not from fear, but from faith. And listen, for the silence that follows is not emptiness. It's your soul preparing to speak. Because the truth you seek is not hidden. It's waiting just beneath the question. Chapter 6. The Mirror of Pain and Desire. Every human emotion, every ache, every longing is a reflection. Pain and desire are not enemies to your growth. They are mirrors through which your soul reveals what still needs to be understood, healed, or integrated. The mind often sees pain as punishment and desire as temptation. But from the soul's perspective, both are invitations, pathways leading you back to truth. Pain is the soul's alarm system. It doesn't arise to harm you, but to draw your attention to a place within that has been forgotten, wounded, or misunderstood. The pain of rejection, for instance, may be pointing you toward self-acceptance. The pain of loss may be awakening you to the impermanence of all things and the eternal nature of what you truly are. Pain does not seek to destroy you. It seeks to purify perception. Desire, on the other hand, is the soul's compass. It points toward your highest expansion, the life that aligns with your deepest essence. But when the ego takes control of desire, it becomes craving, the endless chase for fulfillment outside yourself. True desire doesn't arise from lack. It arises from remembrance. It's the pull of your higher self calling you toward what you were always meant to embody. When you look closely, pain and desire are two sides of the same mirror. Pain shows you what must be released. Desire shows you what wants to be birthed. Pain clears the path. Desire lights the way. Both are expressions of life moving through you, seeking balance, harmony, and evolution. The secret is not to resist these forces, but to listen to them. When pain arises, instead of suppressing it or running away, ask gently, "What are you showing me? What truth have I avoided seeing?" When desire stirs within you, ask, "What is this really pointing to? Is it love, freedom, creativity, or connection that I seek beneath this surface want?" Most people live unaware that their emotional storms are sacred messages. They numb pain and chase desire, never realizing both are speaking the same language, the language of longing for wholeness. When you stop judging these experiences and start observing them with awareness, you begin to decode their wisdom. Pain reveals your fragmentation. Desire reveals your potential. Pain invites you to surrender what no longer serves. Desire invites you to create what's next. Both are divine tools, not obstacles, but mirrors showing you your evolution in real time. To work with this mirror consciously, you must practice presence. When pain arises, breathe into it, rather than resisting it. Let it move through your body like a messenger, not an enemy. When desire calls, don't rush to satisfy it externally. Feel its energy fully. Beneath every desire is a spiritual truth yearning to unfold. Over time, you'll realize that pain and desire are not pulling you in opposite directions. They are guiding you toward the same awakening, the realization that everything you seek already exists within you. Pain reminds you where you've forgotten that truth. Desire reminds you what it feels like to live it. So instead of fearing pain or clinging to desire, learn to bow to both. Ask what they are teaching you. Listen deeply. Allow their reflections to strip away illusion and reveal your essence. Because when you finally look into the mirror and see clearly, you'll understand. Neither pain nor desire was ever against you. They were both your soul, disguised as experience, leading you back to yourself. Chapter 7. Answering the Call of Inner Wisdom. There comes a moment in every awakening journey when the outer world can no longer guide you. The voices of teachers, systems, and even loved ones begin to fade into the background. And what remains is a quiet, unmistakable pull from within. That is the call of inner wisdom. It doesn't always come with fanfare or clarity. Often it begins as a whisper, a subtle knowing that something in your life must shift, even if you can't yet explain why. This inner wisdom is not something you learn, it's something you remember. It is the timeless intelligence of your soul, the compass that has guided you through every lifetime, every transformation, every rebirth. When you begin to trust it, you step into alignment with a current far greater than the logical mind could ever comprehend. Life begins to unfold with a quiet grace, as if the universe itself has been waiting for your yes. But answering this call requires courage, because inner wisdom rarely leads you down the most comfortable path. It leads you down the most authentic one. It will ask you to let go of roles that no longer fit, relationships that no longer align, and beliefs that once defined your identity. It will strip away everything false until only truth remains. The ego will resist this, clinging to the familiar, but the soul knows. Only by letting go can you truly be free. Listening to your inner wisdom means choosing presence over pressure. It means no longer outsourcing your decisions to fear, guilt, or expectation. It means asking yourself before every major choice, what feels expansive? What feels constricting? Because the voice of wisdom always moves toward freedom, not control. It speaks through peace, not panic. Its tone is gentle but firm, like a hand on your heart reminding you of what you already know. Many people hear the call, but few truly answer it, because it asks for faith. It asks you to trust the unseen, to walk in darkness guided only by the light within. But this is the initiation of every soul, the transition from external authority to inner sovereignty. The moment you stop asking for permission to be who you are and start living from the truth of what you are, you'll know you're following inner wisdom, not because life becomes easy, but because it becomes aligned. Synchronicities appear. The right people and opportunities begin to show up as if summoned. Challenges still arise, but they no longer derail you. They refine you. You move through the world with a quiet confidence that comes not from control, but from connection. To cultivate this relationship, you must create space to listen. Silence, meditation, journaling, and time in nature are all sacred tools for tuning into this frequency. But the real practice is not confined to those moments. It's learning to bring that awareness into daily life, to pause before reacting, to listen before deciding, to trust that your inner compass is already pointing you toward your highest path. The truth is, your soul has never stopped guiding you. Even in your confusion, even in your detours, it has been quietly orchestrating experiences to bring you home to your knowing. The question is not whether you're being guided, it's whether you're willing to follow. So when that quiet nudge comes, that whisper to take a leap, to release, to begin again, don't ignore it. That is not random intuition. That is the voice of your destiny. Answer it. Because when you do, everything that once felt uncertain begins to align. And you realize that life was never testing you. It was training you to hear the wisdom that has always been within. Chapter 8. The Reunion. Mind, Heart, and Spirit. There is a sacred moment in every soul's evolution when the battle within begins to quiet. When the mind stops trying to dominate, the heart begins to lead without fear, and the spirit rises to weave them both into harmony. This is the reunion, the merging of your human and divine aspects into one coherent force of awareness. It is not something you chase, it is something that unfolds naturally when you stop resisting who you truly are. For most of life, these three, mind, heart, and spirit, operate in separation. The mind seeks control, trying to analyze, predict, and protect. The heart seeks connection, yearning to love and be loved. The spirit, ever patient, seeks truth, the remembrance of oneness beneath it all. When disconnected, these forces pull you in different directions, leaving you torn between logic and intuition, between what you think you should do and what you feel is right. The mind alone leads to overthinking. The heart alone can lead to emotional chaos. The spirit alone, without grounding, can drift into detachment. But when all three align, you become a vessel of divine intelligence, anchored in wisdom, guided by love, and inspired by truth. The reunion begins when you stop seeing these parts as enemies and start honoring their purpose. The mind was never meant to be your master. It is your instrument, the servant of higher awareness. The heart was never a weakness. It is the bridge between seen and unseen worlds. The spirit was never separate from your humanity. It is the current animating every breath you take. To bring them together, you must first quiet the mind through presence. When the chatter slows, you make space for the heart to speak. Listen deeply to what your feelings are revealing without judgment. Beneath the surface emotions lies the pure frequency of your essence, love. From that place, the spirit begins to guide effortlessly, not through thought, but through knowing. You will begin to notice this harmony in subtle ways. Your decisions feel peaceful, even when uncertain. Your intuition flows like a gentle river rather than crashing waves. Your relationships become reflections of balance, not battles of need. And your actions begin to mirror your inner truth without effort. The mind plans, the heart feels, the spirit directs. This union does not erase challenges, it transforms how you move through them. When your mind, heart, and spirit operate as one, even pain becomes purposeful. Every obstacle turns into an opportunity for expansion rather than contraction. You stop reacting and start responding with clarity and compassion. You no longer fight life, you flow with it. The ancient mystics called this state coherence. When the frequencies of your mind, heart, and spirit vibrate in unity, in this coherence, your energy becomes magnetic. You begin to attract experiences that match your new frequency of wholeness. Life itself becomes a mirror of balance and beauty, reflecting the peace that now lives within you. To live from this reunion is to move through the world with grounded divinity, mind clear, heart open, spirit free. It is the embodiment of your higher self within the human form. You are no longer torn between worlds. You are the bridge. And that is the great truth your soul has been waiting for you to remember. You were never meant to choose between thinking, feeling, and being. You were meant to unite them so that your life becomes a living expression of the divine harmony that created you. When the mind bows to the heart and the heart listens to the spirit, something miraculous happens. You return home to yourself. Chapter 9. Becoming the voice of your soul. There comes a time when listening is no longer enough. When the quiet whispers within no longer wish to stay hidden in silence. They want to be lived, spoken, expressed. This is the stage where you move from hearing your soul to becoming its voice. It is the point where wisdom becomes embodiment, and the truth that once guided you from within begins to shine through everything you are and do. For most people, the soul remains an internal experience, a private dialogue, a sacred connection they retreat to in moments of solitude. But the true purpose of that connection is not just personal peace, it's transformation. The soul's wisdom wants to move through you into the world, through your words, your work, your choices, your presence. You are not meant to only hear your soul, you are meant to be its expression. Becoming the voice of your soul means aligning your outer life with your inner knowing. It's the courage to speak your truth, even when your voice shakes. It's choosing authenticity over approval, integrity over convenience. It's saying no when your heart says no, and yes when your spirit stirs with recognition, even if others don't understand. Because once you've heard your soul, pretending not to becomes the deepest kind of pain. This embodiment is not loud or boastful. The voice of the soul is calm, grounded, and deeply loving. It doesn't seek to convince. It simply is. It speaks through compassion, through presence, through the quiet certainty that comes from being rooted in truth. You can hear it in someone who walks with peace no matter the storm, who radiates kindness even in chaos, who carries light without needing to announce it. That is what it means to live as your soul's voice. To reach this state, your life must become your message, not in theory but in action. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to reflect the consciousness you've cultivated within. The way you listen, the way you forgive, the way you handle challenge, all of it becomes sacred expression. You start realizing that your greatest teaching is not what you say, but who you are when you say nothing at all. This level of embodiment often requires surrendering the ego's need for control or perfection. The ego wants to use truth as a weapon. The soul uses it as light. The ego demands recognition. The soul simply shines. So, as you integrate this new way of being, you'll learn to act not from pride or fear, but from alignment, from the quiet authority of inner clarity. Becoming the voice of your soul is not about trying to be spiritual. It's about becoming real. It's about letting go of the masks you wore to survive and allowing your authenticity to breathe freely again. When you speak, your words carry frequency. When you act, your choices ripple through reality. When you love, your energy transforms those around you, not through effort, but through resonance. You begin to notice that life itself listens differently to you now. Opportunities align, relationships deepen. The world responds not to your voice, but to the vibration behind it, the vibration of truth. Because when your soul speaks through you, the universe hears it. It rearranges itself to match the frequency of your authenticity. And that is the great awakening, realizing that your voice is not separate from creation itself. When you speak from your soul, you speak as life speaking to itself. You become a bridge between the seen and unseen, a translator between heaven and earth. You no longer chase meaning, you embody it. So let your life be the language of your soul. Let your truth be your offering. Let your every breath remind the world that divinity walks here as you, because the highest form of prayer is not spoken in silence. It is lived through authenticity. It is when your words, your choices, and your presence all declare one sacred truth: I am the voice of my soul. Chapter 10. Living in Harmony with the Infinite. To live in harmony with the infinite is to step beyond the illusion of separation, to remember that you are not a fragment of the divine, but its living expression. The infinite is not somewhere out there. It breathes through your lungs, feels through your heart, and moves through your consciousness. Every choice, every breath, every moment becomes sacred when you realize that life itself is God experiencing God through you. Harmony with the infinite begins when resistance ends. Most of humanity lives in a silent battle with what is, judging moments, forcing outcomes, and labeling experiences as good or bad. But the infinite does not resist. It flows. It expands and transforms, embracing both light and shadow as parts of one continuous movement. When you stop arguing with reality, peace arises, not as a fleeting emotion, but as your natural state. Living in harmony with the infinite means no longer chasing alignment, but embodying it. You realize that alignment is not a goal to reach. It is your essence revealed when ego loosens its grip. In this state, you no longer strive to get from the universe. You co-create with it. Life becomes a dance between intention and surrender, a rhythm of giving and receiving, creating and allowing. To live in this harmony is to trust the invisible. You may not know the how, but you feel the certainty of the is. Your intuition becomes louder than your fear, your peace stronger than your doubt. You begin to act not from scarcity, but from inner knowing, because you understand that everything unfolds in perfect timing according to the intelligence that governs all existence. You no longer speak to God as if God were distant. You listen within. You no longer seek signs outside. You become the sign, the living reflection of infinite awareness in motion. The trees, the stars, the quiet rain, they all whisper the same truth. You were never apart from the infinite. You only forgot. To live in harmony with the infinite is to live without resistance, without fear, and without pretense. It is to stand still in the storm and feel the wind as your teacher. It is to smile at the unknown, because you have come to trust that the unknown is love in disguise. And so, your conversation with the soul never ends. It deepens, it evolves, it becomes the very language through which life speaks, soft, certain, eternal. When you walk, the infinite walks. When you breathe, the infinite breathes. When you love, the infinite remembers itself through you. That is harmony, not an achievement, but a return, not an effort, but an awakening. Conclusion. In the quiet spaces of your heart, your soul still speaks. It never stopped. It only waited. Waited for the day you would remember that wisdom does not come from outside you, but from within. Every experience, every wound, every moment of joy or sorrow was never random. It was a message, a mirror, a bridge leading you back home, to yourself. As you've journeyed through conversations with your soul, you've been guided through the sacred art of listening. Listening not just to thoughts or emotions, but to the silent knowing that exists beyond them. You've learned that your soul communicates through intuition, synchronicity, longing, and peace. You've rediscovered that your truest guidance does not come with noise or force, but with gentle certainty. To live in constant dialogue with your soul is to live in alignment with the universe itself. It's the realization that you are not separate from creation. You are creation expressing itself in human form. When you live from this awareness, decisions become clearer, peace replaces chaos, and every step begins to feel guided by an invisible hand of grace. But this conversation never truly ends. It deepens. Every morning you awaken, your soul greets you with new whispers, subtle nudges of direction, truth, and purpose. And every time you choose to pause, breathe, and listen, you step closer to the essence of who you were always meant to be. So wherever life takes you from here, let this truth echo within. You are never alone. You are always guided, and your soul, patient, luminous, eternal, will always find a way to reach you. If this message resonated with you, if it stirred something deep within your heart, then your awakening has already begun. Remember, the journey of the soul is one of remembrance, not discovery. Each time you listen, reflect, and act from that quiet place within, you strengthen your connection to the divine intelligence guiding your path. If you found value in this experience, I invite you to continue your growth journey with us here on Summary Shelf, where we explore timeless truths, awaken deeper understanding, and transform wisdom into daily practice. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss a message meant for your soul. Like this video if it helped you reconnect with your inner truth. Share it with someone who may need a reminder that their soul is still speaking. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you're always guided to the next awakening story or reflection we share. Because this isn't just another summary or just a video, it's part of your conversation with the infinite. And every time you return here, you're not just watching, you're remembering who you are.